Hello, thanks for joining me for your June monthly horoscope for the Sun or the Ascendant. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Every time I drop a video, you'll get an alert. Also, if you'd like to ascend above your zodiac sign forecast and embrace more serious astrology, check out my very special offer. A character analysis and a 12-month forecast, 30% off, will give you searing insights into your future prospects and also help you to understand what makes you tick at a deeper level. This is based on your time, date and place of birth and is totally unique to you. No two charts are the same. Please see the link below for more. Hello Scorpio and welcome to your in-depth forecast for June. Now as this month begins, we have a stellar lineup in the sign of Gemini in the guise of the Sun, Mercury, Venus and the North Node. Gemini of course is all about air because it's about communication. Your sign is about water, emotion. But the emotional part of your situation is given a huge boost on the 2nd of this month when Venus, the planet of attraction, moves into your sister water sign of Cancer, where she will be for the following 28 days. But as she moves, she immediately connects with Jupiter, the planet of growth and of fortune, which nibbled into the water sign of Pisces last month. So to the first point of Scorpio, we have a grand water trine, and that can be very fortunate for you, and especially if you are born right at the start of Scorpio. So what does this all mean? Well, the energy of Mercury is going to be important because it's in a retrograde through to the 22nd of this month, and because it's the ruling planet of Gemini, we have to be very mindful that that is its current activity. Also, it's being challenged in not a particularly positive way by Neptune in the first week. So although Jupiter and Venus forge a tremendously fortunate angle, which if you're looking to meet somebody new can definitely be wonderful, we just have to be aware that if you're processing anything to do with long-term finances, insurance, pensions, mortgages, conveyancing, all those kind of things that require meticulous marshalling, then with Mercury retrograde and Neptune potentially distorting things, it is going to be important to really stay on the ball. But your powers of discrimination are usually very strong, as are your powers of analysis. And one of your great gifts is you don't necessarily analyse things at the level that they're shared with you. You tend to read the information and then dive deep to try to understand what's behind the sharing of that information. And that can stand you in great stead because with Neptune in your sector of romance and now also with Jupiter, that can give you the desire to create a world which really fits your hopes and wishes, which is what the 5th house, where they're located, represents. Whereas I think Mercury in the 8th house is much more about transitions. So the Sun, Mercury retrograde, Venus initially for the first day, and the North Node all in the 8th house of your situation is actually very Scorpionic. And the way to deal with this is through good communication. Now you can be very observant in your observations of other people's behaviour, but it's also going to be important to understand some of the deeper changes that are going on within you. And there is another thing going on in the first week of this month, Scorpio, which sees the Sun in a 120 enabling trine with the rather strict energies of Saturn. Now Saturn's in your sector of emotion and family and feelings. Not the easiest place to be honest, but if you are trying to transact something to do with property, some real estate, you're in some way building something or adding an extension or doing some kind of revitalization to a property, then this would be an ideal combination because Saturn's very stabilizing and the Sun in the 8th house very transforming. So you can turn that to your advantage. But there's two other things to tell you about. in the early parts of this month, because your two ruling planets in traditional astrology of Mars and in modern astrology of Pluto are in a warlike stance in the first 10 days of this month. So whatever's happening around a romance, whatever's happening around transforming your long-term financial investments, it is going to be important to understand that there could be some politics. Now, Mars is in a rather defensive position through to the 10th of this month. It's in the sign of Cancer, which is good for you, but it's not its best place for Mars. And because Pluto's in your sector of everyday communications, it just means that if you feel passionately about something, a point of view, you're going to represent yourself in an extremely trenchant way across this first third of the month. In other words, if you really need to stand your ground, or even be more forceful than that, the chances are you will do so. But it's important to understand the situations where it's worth being that fierce and that intense. And that's the trick of life sometimes, because we don't want to be reacting to what in retrospect can seem like rather minor irritations with a big response. So make sure that if you are going to bring out a more forceful approach, it is a situation which is worthy of that level of intensity. But the good news about Mars opposite Pluto is that if you are an athlete or you're wanting to get a little bit fitter, if you're in the northern hemisphere and you're appreciating the better weather and you want to be more active, Mars opposite Pluto can be very good, because it can give you the determination and the courage to run a bit quicker, swim a bit faster, cycle a bit further. And if you are born again couch potato, like I am, then just that little bit of spark to be more active and to be more go-getting. So you can turn this very much to your advantage. But on the 10th, we have an annular solar eclipse, which provides an energy for the last 6 months of the year. And this says to you that some big changes are likely to be going on in your world. But if they're going on around your love life, it's vital. The 8th house can be where we're devoted. It's vital that you're making some clear-headed decisions, because Neptune also interacts with this eclipse. So for the last half of the year, your emotions are going to be very sensitive about desiring that perfect love relationship. But the reality is that it may require some big changes, and that could mean some endings in order to embrace a new beginning. And that could be a very painful process. So because your sign very much understands ends and beginnings, it's the most powerful sign in the zodiac in that regard. I think you understand these things in an innate way, but that potential you have to be very dedicated to a situation for a long time and then want to reset, which can surprise people because you are a fixed sign and like a degree of permanence. But then once you need to change, it can be an unstoppable force. And I think there is the chance of that in the last half of this year. Then on the 11th, your traditional ruler Mars powers right to the top of your scope. If you need to be more authoritative and take the lead, or even apply for jobs that require you taking more responsibility or being more goal orientated, the following 6 weeks can be very positive for you. But it is true that Mars is going to be going opposite Saturn from the 26th through to the 30th. And because Saturn is in your sector of the home, emotion, family, that points towards perhaps some kind of big conversation or conflab that you may have. Or will that happen on the 14th? Because Saturn is already a retrograde and it meets Uranus, the planet of freedom, exactly at the midpoint of this month. And this relationship that's gone on between Saturn and Uranus has been brewing since the second week of January, and it's been causing a lot of mischief in lots of different ways. Saturn's about your home, family, emotions, as I've mentioned, but Uranus is in your sector of relating. And if your relating sector has for you felt as dull as ditch water, and you're really wanting greater excitement, greater freedom, greater challenges or stimulation, then this could too be a point in the process when you're getting ready to liberate yourself in order to re-engage in a new, fresh and more engaging way. However, the Sun moves on the 20th into your sister water sign of Cancer, and for the following week forges an absolutely beautiful link with Jupiter. For you, this is especially good for all the water signs, so that's in the guise of Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces. This particular trine is as good as it gets, because although Jupiter goes retrograde on the same day, on the 20th, I think the power of the trine is one of the luckiest of all in astrology. So if there is something you want to achieve which is to do with broadening your horizons, to do with travel, to do with being more daring in some kind of way, the combination of the Sun and Jupiter, despite its retrograde, can be very helpful to you. Now on the 22nd, Mercury ends its retrograde, but it doesn't come out of shadow until the 26th. So if you are grappling with that minutiae, keep very focused. Don't let a single document, email or letter miss your penetrating gaze. It's vital that you don't slip at this point. Also in week 3, Venus, the planet of allure, is in an opposition with your modern ruler of Pluto. If you do need to ask for someone's help, or you're attracted to someone, you want to ask them out on a date, you can have it all together in week 3. You can be charm personified. But that brings us to the full moon of the 24th in the sign of Capricorn. The moon doesn't like being in Capricorn because it's in detriment. But for you, this activates the same axis as Mars opposite Pluto earlier in the month, Venus opposite Pluto in week 3. And essentially it's saying to you, whatever your mode of communication is, whatever you feel you want to express to people, it's important it's not just going through the realm of ideas, that you do stay connected to your deeper emotions. But if anyone can do that, I do think it's you. But with Neptune going retrograde on the 25th, remember my cautionary notes about Neptune all through this month. The square with Mercury week 1, and then it's squaring with the solar eclipse for the last 6 months of this year. So Neptune going backwards in your 5th house does point towards some deep reflection around your love life or about how you express your talents. I've explained to you about Mars going into an opposition with Saturn, so that could create some tensions, but it also will crystallize where you really need to concentrate in terms of your time and energy. And then on the 26th, Mercury emerges from shadow, and that gives us all a great opportunity to really feel that anything to do with information is clarified, it's moving, it's gaining traction. So this month begins with a very transformational part of your year. It's definitely augmented by that solar eclipse, and then it moves into a much more expansive area, but it is asking you to take your love life, your devotions, your finances, and most of all perhaps with Mars in the 10th house, very much take your career very seriously in the second half of this month.